Denver's taxpayer-funded plan to help women and minority-owned businesses has fallen apart. The businesswoman running the project is suing the city.
Money can't just disappear.
Speaking of where money goes, Weld County leaders rushed funding to the sheriff's office, only to have the sheriff's office cut services just hours later. Speaking of law enforcement, Denver gets so many 911 calls from the city's homeless hotels, police are just waiting outside for the next problem to happen.
I would say there was definitely room for improvement in terms of how we were securing the site and serving individuals.
Speaking of room for improvement, Colorado's flawed system for missing Indigenous persons alerts might offer lessons for a better nationwide system. And speaking of how we improve the world around us bit by bit, how about we work together to help a nonprofit that guides families through the asylum process with a 100% success rate? Tonight on Next. Denver's multi-million-dollar project to boost small businesses owned by women and people of color has collapsed. The people running that project are now suing the city, saying that Denver isn't providing the funding promised and is now hurting the minority businesses it set out to help.
And I'm honored to support the new Community Transformation Fund for $15.2 million.
Back in 2022, Denver had big plans for millions in marijuana tax dollars, a city-funded, privately run investment fund for minority and women-owned businesses.
We're looking forward to kicking this off and seeing how well it helps out our small businesses.
First city to ever do it. That was the goal. We were so excited.
Demi Fund manager Danielle Schutz says the city of Denver stopped paying into the fund after about a year.
I go back and forth between intentional and incompetence, but something is wrong.
Schutz says the city first said that part of the marijuana tax fund was out of money, then blamed her for not having proper documentation and receipts.
I don't know if it's a delay tactic. I don't know if they don't know where the money is. I don't know.
Schutz's lawsuit says her venture fund is owed $800,000 for money that it spent on the program without reimbursement from the city. She wants an audit of the city's spending on the program, and she wants an apology for the suggestion that she did something wrong.
I'm in the money business. I'm a Black woman in the money business for 15 years. It's so traumatizing to say I'm not giving you receipts. You guys might think it's flippant, but it can ruin my life.
We asked the city of Denver if there is money in that fund and where it went. A city spokesperson said they have not seen that lawsuit, which was filed this morning, and therefore they can't comment. Weld County Sheriff's Office is scaling back services because of a staff shortage at the jail. Quite the surprise to county commissioners who had just given the sheriff's office more than $500,000 in additional funding hours before they announced the cutbacks. The Weld County Sheriff's Office is temporarily suspending animal control services and prioritizing which calls for service will get an in-person response. They say they're doing that to move staff over to cover the jail. The Sheriff's Office says they've struggled with recruitment and retention for years. But county commissioners tell us they were blindsided by these service cuts because they had agreed to rush the sheriff's office more than $650,000 in extra funding less than 24 hours before they announced the staff changes.
Quite frankly, we were caught a little bit off guard. The sheriff had made some budget requests a few weeks ago, and we met with him on Monday and actually granted him raises and step increases.
The small supplemental that the commissioners did give us, we weren't aware of what we were getting or how that was going to come to us or when. But regardless of what we were given, we're at a critical state. So a change is still necessary until we can get stable.
For the time being, the sheriff's office says some calls in Weld County may not get an in-person response. They'll either be handled on the phone or the caller will be directed to submit information online. Denver is adding more security at its hotel shelters for people who had been living on the streets. Only took more than 800 911 calls to those hotels to get that extra security to happen. Police are going there so often, now they're just waiting outside. Here's Mark Salinger.
Every time the call comes in, these guys show up. A seemingly never-ending stream of sirens, responding to a location they know how to get to by now. At the former Doubletree Hotel on Quebec, now being used to house people who are homeless, today's call was just a false alarm. They aren't all this way, though. Denver police received 446 911 calls to this location since November 1st of last year.
I would say there was definitely room for improvement in terms of how we were securing the site and serving individuals.
Cole Chandler is a senior advisor to the mayor of Denver. As of this week, he's now working here full-time. Over the weekend, 2 people were shot and killed at this hotel. Now the city is taking over the lead for security here instead of letting the Salvation Army handle it.
We've added 24/7 DPD presence. We've added 24/7 private security presence. And we've also created a check-in system that every single person that's coming through the front door has to swipe in order to get into this building, so that only the guests of this building can be here.
There are also security cameras and guards at every entrance. Before this week, none of that existed.
You know, you'd have the staff that was up here engaging with guests, but we didn't necessarily know everyone that was in the rooms and in the hallways behind us. And so we've completely changed that in the last 3 days. Every single person is now coming in and out this front door.
Mayor Mike Johnston's homelessness initiative is currently sheltering more than 1,200 people. The majority are staying at 4 hotels around the city. More than 860 911 calls were made to these 4 locations in the past 4.5 months. Police responded to at least 26 assaults, 28 domestic violence calls, 14 overdoses. The list goes on. It might sound like a lot, but the city says it's a considerably lower number of calls involving the homeless than when police responded to encampments.
And really, when you look at that in comparison to previous calls to encampments, it is not on that same scale.
As firefighters pack up today, the numbers show inevitably they'll be back soon. Denver Fire tells me that the station closest to the former DoubleTree in Central Park responded to 158 more calls in January and February than in the same time last year. It's so much that they're now changing how they respond. They're now working to bring in a medical truck, Kyle, so that they don't have to run those fire trucks at every time. And they run a lot of fire trucks when there's a fire alarm that goes off. We found out today.
Well, sure, it's a hotel full of
Like
people. They
15 of them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This was our big question when we first started talking about this story, which is, has the need for emergency help increased, or has it just concentrated that need out of a bunch of disparate camps into a couple of hotels?
So they say that they're running less calls to people involving homelessness this year, now that they're all in hotels, than last year when they were all in encampments. We asked for those numbers, haven't heard back yet. However, they do say that Denver police now, they respond to 1 location, 2 locations, 4 locations with those 4 hotels. They aren't running to 20 different encampments, let's say, throughout the day for different emergency calls.
All right, we'll stay on top of those numbers. It's interesting stuff,
Very
these breakdowns. All right, Mark, thank you. So much of the conversation about asylum seekers in Colorado these days is focused on the Venezuelan migrants who have come here basically in the last year. But long before those folks arrived, a small nonprofit has been working one-on-one with asylum seekers and families, most of them from other parts of the world, not Venezuela. And this nonprofit has a 100% success rate of getting those folks through the process with their asylum claim approved. That's why this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports the Colorado Hosting Asylum Network. They help asylum seekers and their families build stable lives in Colorado, especially in those crucial first 6 months when they can't legally work because they're waiting on their federal work permit. The nonprofit connects them with volunteers willing to share their homes. Or for larger families, the Colorado Hosting Asylum Network helps with the cost of rent. These are families from Afghanistan, from various countries within Africa and Central America. The nonprofit surrounds the asylum seekers with support teams to guide them into every aspect of life in the United States, knowing they're in for the long haul, a personal relationship with somebody who has fled violence and oppression in their home country. Each asylum seeker that this nonprofit helps comes referred and vetted by an immigration attorney who thinks that they have a rock-solid case for asylum. They have also never had a client denied for asylum. I would say in large part because of the support that they provide people to keep them from falling out of compliance with the government's very strict asylum rules. This nonprofit's prepared to bring in more waiting asylum seekers into their program with the dollars that we raised tonight. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to get that link to donate. I'll never ask you to give if I don't myself, so I'll match the first 50 donations of $5. More than 2,000 of you have signed up to simplify your giving with a monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. And that meant an extra $15,000 boost to each nonprofit last month. Input your info once, your donation is split amongst all the nonprofits. Use that same QR code or text.
I would say the first word that comes to mind is finally.
The feds are considering a national alert system to deal with the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women. Advocates in Colorado know creating an alert is just a first step. Denver Restaurant Week sure gets a lot of attention. There's another week to spotlight lesser-known restaurants that also have ridiculously good food. The FCC is proposing a new national alert for missing Indigenous people. Getting public attention on those often overlooked cases is why Colorado created a similar alert in 2022. But advocates tell our Jaleesa Irizarry our alert is still not being used as it should.
Spring usually brings change. But on this March Day, for Raven Payment,
yes, it is a crisis.
Things are the same.
A big one.
It was only a few years ago. Payment was walking up these steps, advocating for SB 22150, a bill that would become law and create the Missing Indigenous Persons Alert System for the state of Colorado.
Statistically, we have found that one Native person goes missing a week in the state of Colorado. And that is also not addressing every Native person that has gone missing that did not get an alert. So, again, it's a crisis.
Payment is a member of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives Task Force of Colorado. She says while alerts come out, they're often days late.
Because it's never going to end, unfortunately.
Monica Snowbird, another member of the task force, shared the same sentiment back in January.
When my own son was missing, it took them 6 or 7 days to issue his alert, and they were supposed to do it within 8 hours.
Indigenous people have been going missing at an alarming rate. So much so, while the FCC proposes a national missing persons alert, they're seeking comment on whether an additional alert should be made specifically for missing Indigenous people.
So just the fact that this has kind of been at the forefront of the conversations about this alert has been cautiously positive, is how I would put it.
Payment doesn't know if the national alert will make the statewide one any better. All she can do is hope for change.
We just encountered law enforcement officers at the Denver March powwow that had no idea that this alert existed. And you know, it's been over a year. We'll see what happens.
The FCC will seek public comment on the proposal before moving forward with a final vote. They pointed out Native Americans are 2.5% of all missing person cases, despite making up 1.2% of the U.S. population.
How often is Colorado pushing these alerts?
So far, since they rolled out this alert in 2022, according to the CBI dashboard, they have pushed out 55 alerts. But according to Payment, that's closer to 70. And this is one of the issues here right now, right, is that there's some discrepancies there. And they said there's always a delay with things. They're hoping to clear that up.
I appreciate all your reporting on this. It's interesting and important. Jaleesa Irizarry, thank you. Heck of a promotion today for Democratic Congressman Joe Neguse from Boulder County. Today, he became just the second Coloradan ever elected to senior House leadership. He's now the House's assistant Democratic leader, the number 4 spot. His office says that makes him the highest-ranking federal lawmaker from Colorado since the 1930s. Lauren Robinson's in with weather. It's nice to kind of have a more chill situation and not have a big storm breathing down our neck.
That's right. It's hard to believe that this time last week we were preparing for a major snowstorm, and now we're sunny and in the 60s for the next few days. Right now we have a live look over downtown Denver. A little bit of cloud covers moved in, but overall we've had a mostly sunny day. We made it into the 60s in downtown Denver. Right now we're at 59 degrees out at DIA. Winds coming in from the east at 13 miles per hour. We have been having quite a bit of moisture south of Colorado, and that's been bringing some light rain and snow showers across south central and southwestern portions of the state. Very scattered, very light, not a whole lot to worry about. Now, some of this moisture has managed to make its way northward into areas like Aspen and Vail. We could see maybe a stray raindrop across the Palmer Divide as we go through the rest of the evening, but certainly nothing that should alter any of your plans. Overnight tonight, we're pretty mild. 30s across the Front Range and Eastern Plains, 20s and 30s in the high country, 30s and 40s across the western slope. And over the next few days, it's going to be very spring-like. We continue to see sunny skies, temperatures in the middle 50s all the way through Saturday. Some breezy afternoons, maybe a few stray raindrops here and there, but overall we're pretty dry until we move into next week. That's when our next system is pushing in late Sunday with some rain showers, transitioning into snow overnight and lingering through next Monday.
When you don't have that visualization and you don't see it, it creates issues.
So come on out and see some Black restaurateurs who are masters of their craft. And lucky for us, you can eat their craft. If you missed out on Denver Restaurant Week this year, you're in luck. Because Black Restaurant Week shines a light on businesses that might not get all of the headlines and reviews, but have some ridiculously good food. Our Brian Wendland caught up with restaurant owners hoping to serve customers and inspire more in our community to join their line of work.
You know, a lot of people say that Colorado doesn't have seasoned food. I beg to differ. Try us.
Tyler Conway knows his food stands out.
This is my signature plate. It's called The Works.
He goes by TK and runs TK's Surf and Turf.
We are Colorado's first Black-owned seafood restaurant.
And this is the second year TK is participating in Black Restaurant Week.
I feel it's very important for me to, join that initiative, and increase that awareness.
He hopes a week showcasing Black eateries in Colorado will lead to new customers and more Black people starting their own restaurants.
I know it's not very many of us, which is the reason you got to start somewhere. The change has to start somewhere.
It's my background, it's ethnic dishes. They stem from my parents, my grandparents.
This is the first year Mississippi Boy Catfish and Ribs has been a part of Black Restaurant Week.
I enjoy making people comfortable and happy. That's my goal.
Owner Ty Allen says the Black-owned restaurants being showcased hold up against anyone's food.
Whether it be North Cherry Creek or whether it be any other five-star, we would rival it because we make everything from scratch.
Like TK, he thinks representation in this industry is important.
When you don't have that visualization and you don't see it, it creates issues.
That's why we join Black Restaurant Week to, increase that awareness and inspire those that not only that look like us, but other, entrepreneurs and people that have dreams.
At the end of the day, TK says taste is colorblind.
Your palate sees no color. All your tongue does is communicate with your brain and your stomach, and good food.
Black Restaurant Week runs through March 24th. We got a list of the 10 restaurants participating in this article on 9news.com. We're back here with your feedback, delivered by DeMarco.
Here you go, Kyle.
Thank you, sir. That's next. The Colorado Hosting Asylum Network helps families who are in our community after fleeing violence in their home countries, Afghanistan or Africa. They help them with every aspect of adjusting to life in the U.S. and preparing to ace their asylum application by carefully following all of the rules. They are tremendously proud that in their organization's history, they have never had a family denied asylum. We're helping them through this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to donate. They hook families up with volunteer host families, especially to get them through that first 6 months when they can't work legally, when many families will take a chance to imperil their asylum application by working illegally. They help these folks follow the rules, and with the help of great immigration attorneys, they get them through that process. And a reminder that more than 2,000 of you have signed up to simplify your giving with a monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. Same QR code, same text to get there. Feedback on asylum tonight from Bill Kellstrom, who writes, "Did you ask how many asylum requests get denied?" Bill says, "I would think very few." Respectfully, Bill, you would think wrong. The vast majority of asylum claims are denied. It varies by year, but about 70 to 80% are denied, which makes that nonprofit's accomplishment all the more impressive. See you next time.